So, the most recent episode of Inside Star Citizen has aired, and they've shown off some of the new Reclaimer Derelicts that are going to be added to the Persistent Universe in patch 3.17.4. I thought these were really interesting because these are not just derelicts. These are derelicts that have been converted into a sort of colony or refugee camp or base for rebels. And so when you go to these places, you're going to see for the first time NPCs walking around on the planet's surface. These NPCs that will be, colonists at these derelict bases, or pirates having made a base of operations in this wreckage of the Reclaimer. And we'll be able to see not just the wreckage of the ship, but things that these people have done to convert it into a livable habitat. Fires, shelter, things, places for people to stay and stuff like that. And this is something that we've not really seen before in Star Citizen, is NPCs actually living planet-side at any place other than the standard planetary landing zones. And this is a huge step forward for the game, both in Stanton and looking forward to the Pyro system, which we know is going to have these settlements, which you will be able to go and interact with the different NPCs there and have various missions there and stuff like that. It looks like at the moment these Reclaimer Derelicts are going to be on Microtech, specifically, given the trees and everything like that we've seen around them. And the way that they have incorporated them into the environment is just absolutely incredible looking. The way that you have the path of the crash that the Reclaimer had to have traveled on, the more sparse plant growth, as these smaller trees are starting to regrow behind where the crash trail of the ship came through the trees and stuff like that. I think that this is a really, really interesting addition, and seeing it come in not like a major patch, but in a 0.2 patch, 3.17.2, is really cool. This will be the first time that we will see NPCs actually planet-side, apart from ones that you see in a major landing zone, or ones that you see inside a bunker that you might go to for a bunker security mission, stuff like that. And so that's very exciting. And we also know that these NPCs will sometimes be seen flying in on various ships and landing at these sites, or taking off and flying out to go elsewhere, as the planetary nav mesh technology is beginning to come into its own, and beginning to evolve, and they are working with their AI technology to make the NPCs start to come to life. This gives me really, really high hopes for what we are going to see in Pyro with the new, outposts and stuff like that, but also hoping that they're going to start adding more and more of these things around Stanton itself. Being able to, go to various places on planet side, like on Hurston or on ArtCorp, for example. I'm not sure how they would make it work on ArtCorp, but there should be more on ArtCorp as well, I definitely think. But being able to go to these locations and find these colonies, or perhaps on various moons and stuff like that, and have more ways to interact with these NPCs, and a wider variety of missions as well, as we go to these wrecks and have maybe we need to deliver supplies to them, or maybe there's a group of pirates that need to be taken out, at these locations. I think that the addition of these is going to add another layer of depth to some of the missions that we've previously been accustomed to doing in Star Citizen, but these will be a lot more interesting because you'll have a brand new location to go to. And so, if they implement maybe box delivery missions, instead of just going to, a landing zone or an outpost, you can go to these derelict colonies and stuff like that. And I'm not sure how much of this there is going to be implemented in this one patch, but it makes me really hopeful for how the various missions and gameplay loops in the game will evolve as the game progresses and as they work through these new things, these derelicts, the various mechanics and stuff that these are going to bring. And it also means that NPCs can navigate the planet's surface, both on foot and also in spaceships now. So being able to see NPCs, I mean, we've gotten atmospheric bounty missions recently, which has been really cool, but being able to see NPCs coming in to land on a planet or taking off from a planet and heading out elsewhere is something that we haven't really seen before, and I think that's really super cool. I'd love to see them add more things like that. Just like maybe have some NPCs that will come in to land at various stations or Lagrange points or at planetary landing zones, just so that you can see other ships coming in and out that aren't player ships. And I think that will do a lot to add to the immersiveness of the world as we start to see NPCs kind of going about their own jobs and their own lives and their own schedules and stuff like that. So it's not just players that we see doing these interactive things, and I think that will be super duper valuable to have for the game. But that's just kind of what I think. Either way, I think that the Derelicts look great. I mean, visually they are absolutely spectacular. If you look at the way the Derelicts are designed, the Reclaimer is massive. It's absolutely gigantic. It's on a scale completely different from any other, derelict that we've had in the game so far. I mean, the biggest one that we've had is the Starfarer, and the Reclaimer is much, much bigger than the Starfarer, both lengthwise and widthwise and heighthwise. It's absolutely colossal, and being able to just see this enormous ship, poking up above the tree line with moss growing over it and stuff like that is going to be just absolutely, absolutely amazing, I think. So yeah, I think that this is a super valuable addition to the game and everything like that. But I wanted to actually go through this Inside Star Citizen video with you guys and just kind of talk about a few of the points that they bring up during the video. I'm going to try and not pause it too much as we go through this, but hopefully we can get a little more insight as we watch through this together, and then we can talk about it a little more afterwards.
At the team, we always wanted to make the Derelict more enjoyable and fun for the player. The new addition of the planetary nav mesh make designer able to put life on the location.
Before it was just kind of a ship just there on the ground, but what we wanted to do is to create a link between the ship and environment around.
We decided to make them more like a settlement, to have like more story around them.
It's like walking in the woods and just sometimes you just found an old car just all rusty there with the leaves and the trees all around. That's the kind of feeling we wanted to do with the Derelicts.
For us designer, a lot of opportunity to make the location more FPS friendly with cover, more like mission friendly, so we can add stuff on top of that.
When you will arrive at the crash, you will see a big trail on the ground. So if you look behind the ship, you will see all the big tree, but in the trail, all the trees will be small, and we're going to have just small rocks and grass, and it's the purpose the ship was there. When you go back in the ship, because you will be able to go back in the ship, you will rediscover the ship as you were before, but in the oldest version.
So I think this is really interesting that they talk about the technology that's going to be in these derelict reclaimers. They're going to be a little older, a little more outdated, and of course aged with all these vines and stuff going across them. But I think it'll be really interesting to be able to explore through these ancient looking ships, because a lot of the derelicts that we have at the moment are, the story behind them is that they've just recently crashed and we're going to, recover a flight log or something like that. But these ones are old. They've been here for a really long time, and they are, overgrown and have kind of like sunk into the ground and stuff like that. And these, whatever group is living inside the derelict at that point in time has made that derelict their home. And so seeing things like the cloth canopies or these the fires, just the different things that they've done to make the derelict more their home is gonna really set these apart from all of the other wreck sites that we have in the game at the moment.
That tell a lot of story about the old technology kind of giving a second life to the ship. We got an update on the planetary nav mesh now on the planet, so we are allowed to put AI on the ground.
Putting NPC in this location that are park air, trying to take the best of the location, scavenging for resources.
So when you will arrive there, you will feel then some people living there since a long time. That's going to give you a feeling that all that place around is just kind of habitated by some people. The mission we're going to do on those ships, if it's a hostile mission, we're going to have some kind of faction there. Is living there, we'll just take control of the ship. And it's not a hostile mission, that's going to be a different kind of faction.
We see all the feedback we receive on January when we start showing the concept of the derelict settlement with the AI team for the planetary nav mesh and all the team in Turbulent. We was able to create a habitation module. We have tools now to be able to generate and procedurally place all this work on the planet. It's just the beginning of the long-term plan that we have in mind to populate and add more and more location in the PU.
And I'm super proud of my team to do that with the design team, the art team. We worked super hard, pretty proud of it, and I'm sure then people will enjoy it. Thanks, guys.
The new inhabited derelict settlement for 3.17.2 is not the only one that will be present in this patch. We will let the player discover them and find them in the universe.
Yeah, so I like how they talk about, they mention that there will be hostile missions as well as non-hostile missions that you'll be able to go and do at these different derelicts, and there'll be different factions that'll be, factions or groups that'll be living at these different derelicts. And I'm super excited to see what all of the different missions and stuff like that that we're going to be able to find and discover at these different derelict sites. I'm super excited to discover what they all are, going to be like. I think that'll be super cool. But more than that, you know, they talk about wanting to make them feel habited and make the planets themselves feel more habited and stuff like that. And you know, I think at the current point in time, I think I heard that there's like 4 or 5 of these wrecks, and they're all on Microtech at the moment. I believe is what they or what the data has said at the moment, but they have talked about wanting to have them on the different planets, and how they have this technology and these tools that will make it a lot easier for them to place these wrecks around the world and around the different planets, and kind of procedurally generate them so that it's not as much work for them, so that they can put them there without having to, you know, take quite as much time to go through it all. I think that's super cool.
The crashed Reclaimer derelict settlements are just one of the new mission-enabled, gameplay-focused environments from Turbulent arriving in the upcoming Alpha 3.17.2, and we encourage you to explore the Stanton system and find additional ones on your own. Hint, some of them are still floating out in space. And when you're done exploring, the fine citizens of Orison will need your help when the newest dynamic event pits the dreaded Ninetails against Crusader security forces. Now, while we'd prefer you discover most of the details for yourself on the PTU and live servers, we do have a brief introduction to perhaps the biggest and most elaborate mission in Star Citizen yet.
Siege of Orison is an event where we take away all of your most overpowered toys, which are your ships. You actually have to use your reactions and your guns and your teammates to hopefully survive this perilous encounter.
We wanted to do what for FPS combat we did for ship combat with Xenothreat, push it to its extremes.
So, having played this Siege of Orison event when it was on the PTU briefly in the PTU cycle for the last patch, this event is absolutely awesome. It's so much fun. There are just waves and waves and waves of Ninetails guys. It is non-stop. There are hundreds and hundreds of them. And as they're going to talk about in a minute here in this video, but they, you know, normal missions, when you go to do a bunker mission, for example, you are going to fight like 15 enemies or something like that. During this, you don't really have a super clear indication of where you're supposed to go, and also the amount of enemies that you are going to be fighting is absolutely insane. I mean, even with 50 players on a server, even if they're all there, you're still going to be outnumbered. And while the AI is sometimes not very good, it can still add up, as this event can take a while to fight your way through all of the different buildings on each of the platforms and you know, disable these devices that they've set up. There's a lot that can go wrong. You can start to, you know, rack up injuries. I think when I was testing it before, it took us several hours, and I ended up with at least a tier 3 injury on almost every single part of my character's body at that point, just because I had continued to take small amounts of damage and wear and tear throughout the course of the mission. It's really cool. It is a chance to get in some really good FPS combat, which is something that Star Citizen has kind of lacked up to this point. You know, is like a really good opportunity to engage in some really good FPS combat. But this mission is absolutely excellent. The platforms that they've built are super complex and just stunning to look at. They are these massive PvP arenas to run around and explore, and I cannot wait for it to hit the live servers and play the event again. They're so cool, so much fun.
So without spoiling the event, the Siege of Orison is a dynamic event which takes place around Orison on some floating platforms owned by Crusader, and we shuttle players in to help out Crusader take back their islands.
When we was making the mission, we wanted to, first of all, we wanted to make a fun mission that pulled people in together to play together, experience something they might not have normally.
In most missions you go up against 10 AI and you really don't get challenged.
A lot of our missions do a lot of hand-holding where we mark everything for the player, and they can sort of disengage to a level and just like walk to a marker and presume the rest of it. This one I wanted to kind of go, right, here's no markers, now think and try figure it out for yourself.
The event is primarily a PvE mission. There are systems in place to discourage PvP.
It's not something we protect against because we want the players to protect themselves from it. We're not discouraging it, but we're not actively supporting it yet.
There's a lot of new spaces we've made for Orison, and working with design on the block out and still making sure it's all in keeping with what Orison is. We looked at expanding the visual library of Orison. What we really liked was the contrast of this kind of idyllic, relaxing garden platforms floating around and this kind of battle-scarred, damage and things like that adding to them. So it was a lovely kind of contrast to put in.
We don't normally have content of this scale.
The main challenge, or the main challenges, were performance. By moving it far enough away from the center, the city of Orison, we managed to avoid most of that.
Having this here helped to improve and push performance because we found issues and we was able to quickly fix them. The experience I hope players get is enjoyment. Mostly, I want players to feel fun and create emergent stories with their friends that they can, tell on Reddit or through videos and whatever. Just have fun, really.
I want them to see all the effort that has gone into healing and gunplay and AI over the years that you may not notice fighting against a small amount of people.
Events in general are great because they pull people who might not play with each other together. You all feel like this comradeship trying to push forward against this enemy that you all have in common.
It's an experience unlike any other in this game.
And I would argue that there are very few games out there right now that are as good at pushing players into these interactions with each other as Star Citizen. This event is really good. I remember when I was doing it on the PTU before, we would run into, I had this little band of players that I was going around with myself, but we'd run into other groups of 3 or 4 players and kind of communicate with them and tell them what we'd been doing, and they'd tell us what they'd been doing, and it was just really neat to run into these other groups of players and kind of try and coordinate with each other on the fly, as to what it is that we were trying to accomplish and the best way to accomplish that. And I think that's something that Star Citizen does exceptionally well is it's really, really good at helping players to find these times and these moments to work with each other and to meet new people and have these very fluid, dynamic interactions with other players. And I feel like there's not a whole lot of other games out there right now that are as good at creating those moments as Star Citizen is. So there's pretty much my thoughts on this inside Star Citizen. I thought it was a really good one. I think that 3.17.2 is really going to be a patch to look out for. There's a lot of really cool things that are coming in this patch that you might not expect from not a main patch. You know, this is a 0.2 patch, for goodness sakes. But we're getting some really, really cool stuff coming in this patch. And I know that it's kind of to tide us over for the longer release cycle that 3.18, 3.19, and 4.0 are going to be having. But I, for one, am super excited to see what comes next. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and let me know what you think of these upcoming changes down in the comments below. Please make sure to leave a like on the video as well to help support my channel, and if you'd like to help support me monetarily, feel free to join the channel memberships for early access to videos, perks in livestream chat, and more. Anyways, thank you guys so very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the verse.